What do you do when the thing that makes you successful is also the thing that is causing you to have mental health issues, but you don't want to give up success?
The worst part of all of it is like I've come to the terms with my therapist and like we've had this conversation where it's like as long as I'm modeling, there's always going to be a part of my eating disorder I hold on to because I don't want to heal that part.
Today's guest, Kelsey Heitzman, you've probably seen in magazines, you've maybe even seen in Vogue or on the runway. We talk about the costs of success, what it takes to operate and be successful in male-dominated environments that are also really, really toxic, that keep reinforcing your mental health issues. We also talk about what it takes to blend the feminine and the masculine energies to own your authentic self-expression and how you can use that to leverage success. This is Helena, and welcome to the Where Boundaries Dissolves podcast, place to heal and become more self-expressed. When we heal, we can step into our power, own our purpose, and make this world a better place. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoy. We're gonna start off with pulling a card to get the vibe of the day, the season, connect to where you're at in life.
I love it.
For those listening, if you're not familiar with tarot, for me, tarot is a way to connect to myself because I feel like I'm very detached from my emotions. So it's a way to like start the conversation.
Let's see. The Emperor
Oh my
is
God.
what I've pulled.
Okay, I'm going to read it to you. The mantra of this card is, I lead the circumstances in my world with confidence, harmony, and generosity.
Oh, I love it. I like that they included generosity because I feel like Emperor could be very dictatorial.
Yeah, exactly. Like very hierarchical. And I give the orders. It talks about the divine masculine. I mean, we both have like masculine and feminine energies within ourselves.
Yes, absolutely.
Authority, power, and natural leader, structure, strategic and analytical thinking, taking action, promotion.
Wait, I love that.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy because recently I feel like I've tapped into a version of myself that's like been the most confident version of myself. I have people-pleasing tendencies. If I mean something, I won't always say it because I'm afraid of what if somebody disagrees with what I have to say.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it doesn't even have to be anything mean, but I'm afraid to speak my mind. And this past few weeks, I've been intent, like I'm just going to say whatever is on my mind. Mm-hmm. I've found like a lot of confidence through just that practice.
Damn.
So I
love that.
I'm loving this Emperor vibe here.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Because literally my first question is like, who are you unapologetically?
Oh.
And for me, unapologetically is like, I've had to tell myself to be unapologetic because it's like the same. I have these people-pleasing tendencies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so if I'm unapologetic, that means I'm trying to be me regardless of what everyone may think.
I've been also faced with instances where I'm like, okay, if I mean, even just doing a podcast where it's like, I have the ability to show myself authentically in a public way. Yeah. And it's like, how do you want to navigate that? What sides of yourself do you want to show publicly? I feel like that was something that was like really scary. And I had to sit with the idea of like, okay, who am I going to be unapologetically? I feel like that is my era to a T of trying to be that best, most confident version of myself.
Adam asked me a question last night when we were going to bed. He was like, what connects you to your feminine side, to your like femininity? Mm-hmm. The first response that I gave him was very connected to work. Yeah. I was like, oh, and I feel centered and I feel grounded in myself and I don't have to like please everyone and I can just be me because we do work in, I mean, for me at least, I'd be very curious to hear if it's similar for you, but like in very male dominant environments. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just constantly trying to like live up to that. Yeah. And then he was like, oh, that's so interesting that you just predominantly talked about work, which is a huge part of my life. Yeah. But then I was like, oh, why isn't like my laughter my feminine side? It just got me thinking like when I laugh loud, I'm like, oh no, that was too loud. I'm so sorry. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's just constantly trying to make myself smaller.
Absolutely. I almost like that you connected femininity with work because inherently like working is not a feminine thing. Yeah. So I mean, I think that's cool. I love the blend of feminine and masculine. Mm-hmm. I also love that was your guys' pre-bed conversation. I'm like, what are you doing tomorrow, Eric? Like very like, I love that this is the pre-bed conversation. Yeah. But I pride myself on having a very strong masculine like presence, but also combining it with feminine. That is the most fun thing to me of pulling out
100%.
these different characteristics of myself that are both feminine and masculine and coexist
Yeah.
in me. It manifests itself most in like fashion. I shop honestly probably more in the men's section than I do in the women's section.
Oh, really?
I get a lot of men's clothing. I don't know what it is about like vintage men's clothing. Men were just like long and slender back in the day, and so they just fit me very well.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, there were a lot of slender men back in
Yeah.
the day. But you know what I love is taking a masculine trait and like owning it as a feminine one. And to your point, like most inherently femininity is not like a very comedic thing. You don't want to laugh too loud. You don't want to like be the center of attention. You want to please everyone, blend in. Yeah. And I've just taken my comedic side and put it at the forefront of my personality. I'm not making like locker room talk jokes. I'm making like intelligent jokes, or I'm making, you know, or just like things that are like relatable to women, you know, taking the bits and pieces of masculinity that like we've never been able to benefit from and like owning them as like our own feminine trait.
And that takes a lot because you are putting yourself out there when you're making like a joke and it's like a statement.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I feel like both of us with past work environments, we know what it's like to be in like the boys club, the locker room talk, you know.
Talk to me about that.
I was in a consulting club on campus. I was the president of the consulting club. I was only one of 2 girls in the entire club. I knew the spaces going into it, that it was like a male dominated industry. I've just always approached it with the mentality that I enjoyed being in those spaces, because if you tell me like I don't fit in a group or in a space, like I'm going to try my best to like fit in that space and I don't know, just like go against what you tell me I can't do. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Like how has that changed for you? Like going from that where your world was like so much like this is the right thing to do, right? This is how because for me, coming from Switzerland, like the finance sector is huge, right? And everyone as well is like getting a degree in business is like, oh, if you want your career to take off, you go into business or in management consulting. Exactly. It's like the right thing to do. Like how did you then go against all of that, leave it behind and be like, no, I'm gonna pursue modeling? So question number 1, what was it like when you were making that change? What were the kind of the fears that you were facing? And did it have anything to do with like the environment that you were leaving?
I think it had everything to do with the environment I was leaving. Okay. I was exhausted of having to almost play the game of just like socializing in an office and keeping up with sports that I don't care about, just to have like office talk and conversations. I just quickly got exhausted of also just like having to like scream for my voice to be heard in a meeting, and like really, really having to like prove myself and have data to back up everything I say, because people aren't going to take my opinion at like firsthand. I really had to prove myself. And even if it wasn't intentional, it's like just how it was. Yeah. I was exhausted. Like I was exhausted having to do all of that. And it was the first year of the pandemic. And so it was like this weird in-between time when like everyone's career, no matter if it was in business, which is like supposedly the safe route, like nobody's career was certain and everything was turned upside down for everybody career-wise. I had always had this thing where I'd modeled part-time, but I'd never given it my full-time attention to make it a career. And I was like, well, if I were to do it anytime, it might as well be now, because nobody's career path is going as they planned. There was definitely like pushback from my parents. Like my dad is in business. He loved that I was in business, and he's not at all tapped into his like emotional side. So the bulk of our relationship was existing talking about business
and performance.
And yes. And so I was like really scared specifically about that relationship and like how that would change me moving to LA and like pursuing modeling. Cause I'm like, okay, well now we're not going to have really anything in common. And he's been supportive, but I mean, our relationship is definitely different now. Yeah. Which sucks. But, and it's hard. I feel like I've met the most genuine people and people that truly see me for me. But my relationship with my family, it's like nobody necessarily understands what my life is like anymore. Yeah. So it's kind of hard. Distanced me from my family. Yeah. But also allowed these like true, genuine, like chosen family relationships into my life.
Ugh. I'm getting so emotional
Yeah,
right now
yeah.
because I moved from Switzerland and like literally the life that I led there,
Mhm.
like it couldn't be more different out here.
Yeah.
And so I've changed and the way people relate to me is changing. And I think it's more apparent to me just because I'm like, oh, I can't go to you for this. I can't go to you for this. I
Mhm.
can't go to you for this. It's just changing everything.
Yeah.
Luckily for me, my family is very supportive and
Mhm.
they try to understand but it's also because like my brother is like been struggling with schizophrenia, and so that has been like it's just pushed my parents to confront a lot of things that were
Yeah.
like just like I want to say they're just products of their generation, but that having that in the family has definitely like surfaced a lot of topics that we've had to just like face and like
Yeah.
talk about. Like conflict was never a thing in my family. Like
Mhm.
everything was just kind of like pushed to the side. And now, like whenever there's like no one was ever struggling, like it was always all just
Yeah.
fine and all this kind of stuff. And now that there's like clearly someone's not fine, it's like we've had to learn how to talk about these things. I think because of that, there's more understanding and there's more willingness to like understand what I'm dealing with. But with regards to my other relationships, it's going through like a lot of change right now.
And
Yeah.
it's sad because these people that have always been there to fill every cup
Yeah.
for you your entire life are now, it's like you have to compartmentalize them, where it's
Yeah.
like, okay, now we can't really talk about all of these other things because they don't give me what I need when we talk about it, whether it be
Yeah.
career, whether it be like relationships, whatever it is. Like putting somebody that's always been there throughout your whole life and compartmentalizing them and be like, well, now they just serve this purpose and we can only
Yeah.
talk about this specific stuff. You have to like mourn the loss of that
Yeah.
relationship that you once had,
Yeah.
which I'm working through that in therapy myself. And like even just me being in therapy and having my own like mental health struggles has also been that taboo thing because we also didn't talk
Interesting.
about feelings and everything was swept
Oh.
under the rug. Like my parents got divorced and like we never talked about it. Like
Yeah.
it was never, and there was never even like a question of, do you like,
Are
because I
you
have an older brother,
okay?
like, are you and your brother okay? Do you guys want to talk to somebody? There was never any of
Yeah.
that. It was like, it just
Yeah.
didn't happen.
Yeah.
I can't even have my therapy be like a private thing because like I'm still on my parents' insurance or my dad's insurance. So it was like I had to have that conversation to be like, hey, I'm like seeing a new doctor. And he's like,
Yeah.
okay, what's the doctor for? And I was like, well, it's
Yeah.
therapy. Like that was even
Oh
a
my
hard
God.
conversation.
Yeah. How did you have that conversation with him?
I'm very honest with my parents and like
Yeah.
we'll tell them things and it was very like few words were spoken. I was like,
Oh,
hey,
really?
I'm going to therapy. I'm struggling. You don't have to worry about me, but I'm just, I'm just
Yeah.
going to go to therapy. And it was like,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh,
Like no
really?
conversation was had.
Yeah.
Yeah, just okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So
Damn.
yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I was the only one out of like nobody in my there's some people in my family that should be in therapy,
I think
but
everyone needs therapy.
everyone does. Everyone
Yeah.
does. But I'm the only one that
Yeah.
like does it, which is
Yeah.
also comforting about being here because I mean, most of the people that I know out here are do some sort of therapy
Yeah.
or just like even like just mental self-care or like mental health rituals. And that's also just relieving that I'm like, there's so many reminders of like why I'm like in the right place with the right people being here and like moving here,
I love that. I love that. I have
Yeah.
so many questions.
Okay, yeah.
So when you first came out here, like how long have you been in LA for again?
3 years.
3 years.
Mm-hmm.
How did you go about finding that soul tribe for yourself? Very curious because I'm in that process myself.
It is so hard to make friends as an adult.
Yeah.
Like, especially when you don't have school or like even I don't have a typical like work environment where I work with the same people. Like it's so hard to meet friends. Like
it is.
And I know some people that have done like there's even like Bumble BFFs, like a dating app for friends.
Yeah. Did you try that?
was-
Tried it. But I was like flaked.
Me too. Okay. I was on it for like 3 days.
Yeah.
And I was messaging some people, but it felt unnatural for me.
Yeah.
And I'm not a good texter. Like I would way rather like hang out. And I feel like they all started with like a text, like, so like, how long have you like been in LA? Like the small talk was like all over text and it just didn't resonate with me. My approach to like making friends out here, I just like, I honestly opened myself up to like everybody, which in hindsight, I wish I didn't necessarily do that because it just lets in good and bad people. Because when I first moved out here, I was volunteering. I started a new gym. Like I was just doing as many like social things as I could just to meet people.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. And honestly, with volunteering, it's like you meet people that are like like-minded, like care about similar things that you care about and are just like good people. I did that for a while. Whenever I was on set, I would try to make friends, but it was literally anyone that would like talk to me or give me the time of day. I'm like, let's be friends. Let's hang out. Like, let's, you know.
Which
and
is good.
it was good, but it let in some bad eggs.
For sure.
One of my friends told me, they were like, your time is valuable. Not everyone deserves your time. They have to like earn your time. And that really hit. And so now I'm kind of in the process of being like, my number one thing is like my friends have to show up for me. Like I don't, yeah, like I don't ask people like a lot. I don't ask of my friends to like do a lot for me. But like if I do ask, like I want you to show up for me and not like gripe about it. Like I want you to be happy to show up for me, you know?
So, I love that you're claiming that for yourself.
Yeah.
Like, you need to show up for me. Also, you need to be happy about it.
Yeah, right. I'm not going to drag you along kicking and screaming.
Yeah. I don't ask much. Just like this one time.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. That's been like my process of elimination with people in my life. If I don't think they would show up for me, if I really needed them to, like, they don't deserve my energy.
I was actually thinking of joining like a breathwork class and starting to like,
cool.
Yeah, meet people there.
Yeah. I literally sign up for anything and everything. Yeah. Like a pottery class, I'm there.
Really?
Painting class, I'm there. I just did a 3-hour intuition class. It was actually really cool. Okay. It was like a small group. One of my friends like recommended it. And like I walk into this like woman's house. There's only like 6 of us there. So it's very intimate. And we just went through all of like how to connect to like our intuition and like spirituality, but I mean, they related it to everything. It wasn't just in the spiritual realm, but just how to like operate through your life and like trusting your gut versus like knowing when you're just scared to do something. Like it was really, really cool. Interesting. But I met people through that, just like random. Cool. I will sign up for anything.
I need to be more like you. Over the years, I've also just become like you were saying, not everyone's deserving of your time. Like I've taken that maybe a little too seriously. Okay. I'm just like, I need to loosen up a little and just start going out more and and also
at least just for you. It doesn't even have to be for other people. But just whatever you, I mean, most of the stuff that I do when I just like go out and do stuff, I do alone with the intention of like, okay, well, if I do it alone, I'm more likely to talk to a stranger and like meet a friend, you know?
I want to touch upon something you said earlier where you're like, you're in your era of being confidently you. I think that's like a fascinating concept because you're a model and you contribute in helping bring like a vision to life. It's like, I'm imagining everyone's trying to tell you to look a certain way and to do a certain thing, but at the same time, bring that thing that makes you make it come alive in front of the camera. Yeah. Right. So it's like balancing of these different things that are happening or that have to happen. How do you stay true to yourself, but then also perform?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And it's honestly such a foundation of my experience as a model because I thought the number one thing I could do to help myself is to sign to an agency and that would fix all my questions. Interesting. Or like just make me have the career I want. But when I signed to an agency, they were like, okay, we want you to be the cookie cutter model of like, okay, this is an LA model. This is our brunette, slender model. And that's like, we want you to look as generic as possible. Yeah. Whereas that went against a lot of like what I wanted to do personally. When I first came to LA, I had really long hair and it was like much lighter than it is now. And I wanted to chop my hair. I wanted to dye it dark. I wanted to get tattoos, which I eventually did. It was just like, I wanted to do all these things to express my personality. Even just dressing more like masculine, I didn't do for a while because I was like, well, I have to present myself in a very like cookie cutter, brunette, white, tall model. Yeah. That's me. Yeah. As I was like not finding success in modeling through that, I was like, okay, like fuck it. What do I have to lose? I'm gonna cut my hair. I'm gonna dye my hair. I'm gonna get the tattoos I want. I'm gonna dress how I want. I'm gonna post what I want. I mean, it wasn't just like one day I woke up and was like,
Yeah.
I'm doing all of it.
Right.
It was very like a gradual, and every time I did it, I would get nervous. Will I never book another modeling job again? I still think I'm a little like tame of the full version of myself. Like I'm holding it back, but I'm definitely in my era of like, I'm just doing what I want to do for Kelsey, not for like Kelsey the model. And clients respond well to it.
I love it.
I feel like clients want to like hire people. They don't want to hire just a model. That's my goal. I want a client to look at me and be like, I want her. I don't want just a brunette, white, tall model. I want her. And so I've been like leaning into that a lot. And I feel like the response has been good. And I've been booking the types of jobs that I like fuel me creatively and like that I actually want to be booking.
It's crazy, right? When you like open the door and you allow yourself to be you a little bit and you stop trying to fit into whatever box that everyone is trying to put you in or is telling you that you are in.
Yeah.
And it's like, the more you allow yourself to do that, it's suddenly you have like an avalanches of energy where you're just like, oh, I want to do this and I want to do this and I could like experiment with this and that. It's just like the intrinsic motivation and the like sheer life force energy.
Yes.
I don't know. It's just like,
well, and I'm just so proud because whenever I see my work, I'm like, that is me. Like, that's a reflection of me. That looks like me. That feels like me. It's not, oh, I played dress up for the day and I'm like cosplaying as this like posh like girl that wears dresses and frolics in a field. And like, yes, I'll do that.
Yeah.
But I just feel my work has felt more me and I'm like more proud of the work that I've done as more of myself.
I love that. I love that so much. What's your personal purpose doing all of this?
That is like my life journey right now, is trying to find my personal purpose.
It's hard.
Because my personal purpose in the immediate future is I just want to express my creativity to the fullest amount via modeling, because I love fashion. I love just the creative expression that comes with like modeling and posing and all of that. And it is an art. And like I've worked really hard to get good at it. But I'm like also at the point where I'm 25 and like as crazy it is to say, like I only have like a few more solid years left in the industry. I have to find like my purpose beyond just that. That's definitely something I'm working through in therapy, to be like, okay, I could see my immediate goals and my purpose and everything for right now and the next year. But beyond that, it's hard for me to see that manifest itself in anything but modeling. Yeah.
Purpose is like a hard one to dissect. Like I've done a lot of work on it. For me personally, I was in a job that I didn't really find very fulfilling. So I was like, okay, what is my purpose? And I kind of came to the conclusion, well, my authentic self-expression is, because that's me. That's the thing that I bring to the table. But obviously that can manifest itself in so many different ways. Like I could be building a product, I could be doing a service, I could be doing like I could be helping other people in some kind of form. And so I'm kind of moving away from it's just your authentic self-expression to it's actually also tied to something that you do as well. But then it's just like, oh my God, that becomes overwhelming because there's like so many things. You've mentioned like going into therapy and like talking about mental health. Like obviously as a model, there's like so much pressure to keep up with a certain level of perfection and some a certain, just like the standards are super high. Like what has that journey been like for you?
When I moved to LA, I had that pressure of like, this is how I pay my rent. So I have to make it work. And I was just in the headspace where I was like, I'm giving it 110. And honestly, I think something that is a good sentiment, but like really messed with me was a quote. Some actor, one of the like really accomplished actors, was being interviewed about how he lost a ton of weight for a role. And they were like, how does that make you feel as an actor when you have to put on 25 pounds, then lose 50 and all of that stuff? He was like, this is the job I've always like dreamed of doing. There's no length that I wouldn't go to keep this job and live my dream. And I took that a little too seriously at the time. And I was like, oh, well, I need to apply that to my career to be successful. It's like, there's no length that I won't go to fit what I need to fit in, to be the LA cookie cutter brunette model. So I really struggled a lot with my first, and I'm still struggling, but like my first 3 years here, like struggling with eating a lot. Which is very common amongst models, and I feel like is almost like brushed off because it's like, oh, you're a model with an eating disorder, like that's fine. Like, of course, you're like one of 90% of them, you know?
Comes with the job.
Yes. Yeah. And there was a part of me that I didn't even like think it applied to me because of my profession. Like, I don't have a problem. I'm eating like a model eats. And so it took me probably 2 years of fully being in eating disorder behavior to even acknowledge the fact I had an eating disorder.
How did you how did you acknowledge that?
I honestly, I didn't really. Like, I wanted to join an eating disorder recovery group. I joined because I was like, you know what? I know this is something to some extent that bothers me. I was thinking about food constantly. Like, it was just on my mind all the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to have to think about food. I just want to eat. And so I was like, let me join this group. And of course I joined like a recovery group while I'm very much practicing behavior. I'm like at the beginning stages of my eating disorder. But in my mind, I'm like, well, no, I just deal with it a little bit. So like recovery is like a good, place to start. I was in the group for a month and they very much were like, we think you need more help than just this recovery group. Yeah. And so
Did you take that well?
I did, but still a part of me was like, no, like, I don't really need more help. They just don't know my full story or like whatever. So I started seeing somebody one-on-one and like have still been like dealing with things, but like working on it. And honestly, the worst part of all of it is like, I've come to the terms with my therapist and like, we've had this conversation where it's like, as long as I'm modeling, there's always going to be a part of my eating disorder I hold on to because I don't want to heal that part. Because
it's like, I'm not going to be successful.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I'm going to like get too, I hate that I'm saying this, but like lazy or like I'm going to get like lose it or I'm going to get too loose or comfortable.
And I can sit here and be like, that's an illogical way of thinking. I could sit here and say that, but my eating disorder brain doesn't buy into any of it. When I'm like the most like in my head about it, I just always tell myself like, oh, that doesn't apply to you. Like, you are a model, you have to act this way. Like, so that's kind of been something I've been just like sitting with is like, okay, so as long as I'm a model, am I going to like still be treating myself poorly? I hope I can work through that and work beyond that. But like, I just tie so much of like my happiness to success that I'm like, honestly, I don't even know what success looks like for me because it's constant. It's like an ever moving like target. Every time I get closer, it gets farther away. And I'm like, what do I feel like success is to me?
That's why it's so hard to overcome these challenges because you're constantly like, for me, I'm a very restless person and I don't like it. I struggle to take breaks and all this kind of stuff. And then it's like, oh, I'll get there and then it'll be better. But it never does because I'm in the mindset that I have to be in the hamster wheel in order for things to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm never thinking, oh, like success comes with ease. You know what I mean? And I was just talking to a friend about that yesterday and she was like, no, you don't have to like, yes, there's sweat. Yes, there's showing up. Yes, there's discipline, but also you're not controlling everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If I'm like working 12 hours a day or 8 hours a day, and I'm recovering, like I really had to like, I don't know, force myself to believe that taking breaks and that less was more and that slow was fast and all of these new ways of seeing work that, oh, I'm doing creative work. I need regeneration phases and I needed to prove to myself that I was actually doing better work with it. But I was so afraid like, oh my, if I'm not just working all the time, basically I'm not going to be, I don't know, successful. I'm going to fail. And I was so afraid of like failing.
Yeah.
And I was so afraid of not being good enough for everybody and then not being loved, And so I was just like, that just kept me in this hamster wheel. And I feel like the eating disorder, like that syndrome is manifesting itself in the eating disorder on your
100%.
end.
For me, it's all about control.
Yeah.
It's a way that I can control my career to the utmost of like my ability.
Yeah.
But I do think like, and that's something that I'm trying to like ingrain in my like everyday ritual is just like the ease and the easygoing of it. And the just like going back to my roots of like why I want to do this in the first place. I have to often remind myself that it's not like a 24/7 job because I'll answer emails in bed. Like I'm constantly like doing stuff that I would consider work. And like just monetizing everything in my life to be like, okay, this could be work. This could be work. Any hobby I have, that could be work.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
No, I totally hear you.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's like an obsession. And there's almost so much satisfaction in it too.
Mm-hmm.
That it's just like, oh, I can control this. And then I feel good about myself doing it because it's a sense of accomplishment and progress. Whereas in the area that we're both working in right now, there is so much uncertainty.
Yeah.
So it's like you do need that sense of safety, that sense of control. And an easy way to access that is the input that you give, like, you know.
Absolutely.
And so is this something that you guys talk about in therapy, is like how to regain a sense of control without burning yourself out and starving yourself in a sense?
It's like just so ingrained in my everyday, like I'm a list person. I'm a Virgo. I'm a list person. I have a list for everything. The recent tactic that my therapist and I are like working on is like my happiness to-do list.
Oh, I love that.
And so I will create, so I still have a sense of like control and productivity. I'm still looking at a list and checking things off a list, but it's literally just things for like the pure enjoyment and relaxation. Like it could literally be like read 10 pages of a book or go on a walk or ride your bike to go get lunch or something like that. Like they're very easy things. And obviously there's like bigger things in there, like go to a class of sorts or whatever. If I'm like spinning out and I'm like, I need to be productive, but there's like, it's just chaos in my brain, I'll look at that to-do list and be like, okay, here's your to-do list. Just do small things that just make you happy. And for whatever reason, that still feels productive in my brain.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's like good productivity.
Yeah, the ticking off. I love that.
Yeah, so that's what I've been doing lately. But it's ever changing. Like we always like introduce like new skills and stuff like that that like are hopefully to like help me.
I love that.
Just regain control in like other areas.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Damn, that's like what does that armor look like that you wear? Like you were talking about, there's Kelsey and then there's model Kelsey. I mean, like, is there, like, what are you telling yourself when you walk onto set? Like, how are you keeping that sense of self-worth so that these things don't like hurt you and lead you to spiral? Like, you know, where you go back and you're like, oh, well, I was not good enough. So I don't know, like you just be extra hard on yourself with regards to eating the rest of the day or the rest of the week. I don't know if that's what happens, but like, that's what happens for me. It's like, okay, well, let me just be extra extreme in my measures when things don't go according to the plan or I don't know.
I think a huge thing is like being my own worst critic. Yeah. But in terms of like showing up on set every day, like I worked really hard to like be a good model. The armor and the armor is almost like to deflect from anything that's like too personal or too raw or whatever it is. So it's like if I could show up to set, be personable, be talkative, be funny, be like a good light presence on set, but then also just be good at what I'm doing, know how to pose, do my research beforehand, know what the brand is and know what style of modeling they want from me so that I could show up and already kind of know what they want. Is like a big thing of just like being good at my job so that's the focal point of like discussion.
It's a level of professionalism that you just bring to the table that you've just acquired over the years. I think that's very useful to people like listening, that it's just like not everyone has to like, there's a lot that you can do to help yourself as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We're introducing a little thing where we're asking previous guests to leave a journal prompt for the next guest.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And so your prompt was, how have you been connecting to your creativity and inspiration lately? Was it easy to journal on it?
Very.
Yeah?
Yeah, very. And it was funny because like I hadn't really connected. I did a full circle on it where I was like, okay, previously, how was I connecting and how am I connecting now? I hadn't much thought about like how I connected with creativity prior. It like sparked some like good journaling.
Oh, we love a good journaling.
Yeah, love
session.
journaling.
It's so frustrating when you feel like I want to journal today and then it's just like nothing.
And I love a prompt. Yeah. I'll just Google like journaling prompts and then that's what I journal about. Yeah. So this is like perfect.
Okay. So what did you write?
I used to connect creatively through people. like, and be inspired
Interesting.
by people. And that is no longer the case.
Yeah.
Naturally, that's like my instinct, is to see someone I aspire to be. And that's what sparks creativity of like, okay, how can I attain that? And like, even just like as a kid, I like inherently would like pick up on traits that like my teachers would have or my friends. When I'm around people, I like pick out things that I like and I just inherently start doing it. I felt like that kind of manifested itself like later on when I'm thinking of like, okay, how do I want to be inspired? Like as a model of like shoots coming up or whatever, I would draw inspiration from other people or even just like creating on social media. It was almost like a copycat behavior, and not like directly, but I would see something and be so inspired by it and like not be able to get that out of my brain. I would mood board and I would draw inspiration from like all of these other shoots that I've seen and try to create a version of that. And even with social media now, there's trends and things that you see people doing that you're like, oh, like I could do that. Like, you know?
Yeah.
So I recognize that a lot in myself. And I was like, okay, I don't want to draw inspiration from other people. I want to be unique in that sense. I like unfollowed a lot of people that were similar to me.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't follow many models on Instagram. I don't follow anyone that's like really similar to me in career path. I like now live by the motto, like consume less, create more.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be like looking on social media, trying to find inspiration. Like I just want to create my own. So I've found inspiration and like creativity through nature mostly. Just like being outside, being in nature. That's been, and just landscapes. Like I get so inspired by a landscape where I could like see a setting and I'm like, I want to do a shoot here. This is what I would wear. This is like the whole thing. And like, I get very inspired by that. Silence is a big one for me.
Do you feel like it's then when stuff like will come through you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Like I'll do a silent car ride. I'll do like silent walks, silent runs. And like, I get a lot of creative inspiration just from that, just from thinking. Yeah. So I feel like that's kind of been where I'm like taking my inspiration lately. I'm like trying to reroute because inherently I want to draw inspiration from people. But I think that's what a lot of people are doing. And it's just this cyclical, like, what is even a unique thought anymore? Somebody's probably done it and it's probably cemented on the internet for everyone to reference and be like, well, that's not creative or unique because so-and-so did it in 2015. And, you know.
Also just like the way you said it so eloquently, to draw inspiration from nature. Because for me, nature is like a place where I can like quiet the noise. But obviously then you gain a new sense of inspiration because it's like everything washes off of you and then new ideas can arise. I never thought of it as like a thing to do to gain inspiration. I always was like a regeneration, but obviously they're the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm realizing.
I feel like whenever I'm like submerged in nature, it's like very easy for me to like, I don't know, just like look at anything and like almost as like an exercise, like, okay, look at that tree branch and like try to see like the beauty in it or like draw a concept from like that tree branch. It's almost just like that exercise of there's like so much to look at and it doesn't even have to be anything crazy. We've all like gone on a little nature walk in the trees or whatever, but like trying to like look at mundane things with like a fresh perspective, I guess is what I try to draw
I love that.
inspiration from. But
I love that.
I'm like a big nature girly.
Yeah,
I love being in nature. That's why I don't think I could do New York because everyone's like, oh, why LA over New York? And like, there's many reasons, but I think a big one is I'm so like my emotions are derived from my environment. That's why I love this place. Like I need the light. I need to be able to see a tree.
Yeah, 100%.
Some grass. My dog would love some grass. I don't know.
The smell of grass.
Love the smell of grass.
Like it rained a few weekends ago or like this weekend, I don't know, but like we went for a walk in the canyons and it was just like the earth was so like the smell of the earth.
Yeah. Where you grew up, was it very naturey?
Yeah.
Okay, same. Yeah. So I feel like it's very like nostalgic. Yeah. And like comforting.
Yeah, exactly. So cleansing. It's just like, oh my God, okay. I feel like all the craziness is just like taking a minute and I can absorb all of this. And I was like, I need 3 days in this. Like, just silence and just like nature would be really amazing. But same as you, I was trying to move to London and I'm so glad like that all of the doors got slammed shut in my face because I would not have been happy there.
Yeah. I lived in West Hollywood before I moved to Pasadena.
Oh, really?
Just like the small difference in being in a suburb and like
Yeah.
having neighbors that have families and like that's their home
Mm-hmm.
is so comforting. And I didn't get that in West Hollywood, that I instantly moving the first week, I just felt happier. I felt lighter. I wanted to be outside. Just wanted to go on walks. Whereas like in West Hollywood, I didn't really want to go on walks throughout the day. Like it just felt like a chore to like take my dog out.
Yeah.
Whereas like now I'm like so excited just to like walk around and like wave to the neighbors and like, you know.
Wherever you live, that has to be like a sanctuary. Then to close it out, I have a rapid 5.
Okay.
What's the best piece of advice you've gotten in the industry?
I've gotten so much bad advice. Follow your gut is probably like the best advice I've got. Like trust your intuition.
Okay. How'd you strengthen your intuition?
Just asking yourself like, is this what I want or am I afraid? Like knowing when you're afraid to do something and that's why you have that icky gut feeling, or if it's actually like bad news. Like encourage yourself to do it if you're just afraid to do it.
That's such helpful advice.
Yeah. A lot of times we're just afraid to do it.
Yeah, for sure. What has anxiety taught you?
Just to be kind to myself, to be nice.
And there's no reason there's no reason or justification for kindness.
Yeah.
Like we just deserve it.
You don't have to earn it.
Yeah, exactly. Would you feel the most connected to right now in life?
Probably nature. I feel very connected to nature. I'm also in my nature era. I feel like I just feel very grounded.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that so much. The emperor connected to the ground. That's amazing. Because you can't be in your emperor era if you're not grounded within yourself.
Yeah, that's a dictator. Yeah. That's not an emperor.
Yeah. Morning or evening self-care routines?
Both.
Oh, yeah?
Both. But I'm far more productive in the morning, so I accomplish more.
Yeah.
So the morning is the most important.
Yeah.
But whatever I could scrap up at the end of the day to do some self-care.
Really? So what is like your routine in the morning?
I meditate. I go on like silent walks.
Oh, you do in the morning? Okay.
In the morning with my dog.
Yeah.
And I don't listen to anything. I do go on my phone. I'm not one of those. I can't wake up. I do wake up and go on Instagram. Yeah. But at least that walk is like sacred silence for me.
Nice.
And then skincare and that kind of self-care.
And what does your self-care routine look like in the evening?
I try to not do screens. That is more like self-care via like conversation. Yeah. Like that's when I have like the deep talks with Eric and like unpack everything that I need to unpack. And
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that so much. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. This was so fun.
Yeah, it was
You're
fun.
so easy to talk to. And truly your superpower is like genuinely like listening and caring.
Thank you.
For other people, because that is very rare.
Thank you.
So I appreciate
you
listening.
I appreciate you being so open and honest and just trusting me throughout this. So